You want to talk about the Bobs? The Bobs of Diz?
Yeah, Bob Chapek is fired and Bob Iger is back.
Do you know more about this than I do? Look, all I know
I
is
don't.
that Iger was there for a billion years.
Yeah,
And
he bought all these IPs. He bought and built this empire for better or for worse. And I think he set a lot of things in motion that are still happening because this guy Bob Chapek has only been there for 11 months.
yeah, Iger is Disney Plus. He is the Marvel acquisition. He is, he's kind of like he's everything that Disney can take credit for at this moment in time for its enormous earnings. I've been down this rabbit hole that you've been watching me go down. It all started with sometimes on our Discord, we'll talk in circles about whether or not Marvel movies. It's like the Star Wars was never good thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how much worse is it than before, or what is the problem exactly? What, because occasionally you'll get somebody who's like, well, no, but No Way Home was good, and then this was good, and and so maybe it's actually not that bad. And I was like, I don't know, man. There's like a distinct post Endgame problem here, and I wanted to try to represent it empirically. So it started with, I made a spreadsheet of every movie and show, excluding, of course, S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Netflix shows, though I included the Incredible Hulk. So you could critique my methodology, but I think and I included, of course, the Sony Spider-Man movies, where you have to. But from my perspective, it's every MCU movie and then every Disney-produced MCU show. That to me feels like the right thing.
All the Marvel studios produced content.
Marketed overtly as you have to watch these TV shows to understand what goes on in the movies.
Yes.
Which so far has not been true at all, except for Wanda with Multiverse of Madness. That's the only one. Sort of.
even that's kind of like, it doesn't quite work.
I mean, you wouldn't know who those kids were. You'd be like, oh, fuck, it's kids. Sort of. Yeah, it would. I imagine it would be a struggle with if you hadn't seen WandaVision. But at the same time, I really liked WandaVision, and Multiverse of Madness really let me down with how they paid it off, because they didn't really address it all that much.
No. So
it started with me. I just charted it like my personal ratings 1 to 10. Then I invited other people in the Discord to rate theirs. And it turned out that only with a few, when you're talking about 30 projects, you diverge a little bit in your opinions, but actually across 4 like-minded, similarly aged guys, you're like, oh yeah, we all pretty much feel the same way about
the trend movies. Line is pretty similar.
Occasionally somebody will hate the fuck out of Iron Man 3. Or there'll be some I actually loved Thor: The Dark World, or something.
I do. I think it's kind of fun.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of that divergence, and we actually, there's one of our friends is a data guy, and he was like, you should do a rolling 3-year average. So, to smooth it out so that it's not leaping up and down quite so much. And then that really did kind of if you categorize it by phase, you can see oh yeah, there really was this critical, at least according to us, this critical dip around phase 4. So then I'm going well, who the hell are we? So I go to Metacritic and I go to Rotten Tomatoes and I get the audience and I get the critics score, graph those out. And, they're basically exactly the same except for Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, and Eternals. The critics loved Captain Marvel and they loved She-Hulk, and the audiences didn't. And the audience loved Eternals and the critics didn't. Other than that, really it's the same shit. Yeah. And then I go, everybody goes, well, you don't want to do Rotten Tomatoes. You want to do Metacritic. Because there's always a nerd right around the corner telling you to use Metacritic. Okay, they're in the comments right now. Don't look down, everybody. They're there.
The Metacritic
bad
fans.
Take about Metacritic, fellas. Bad take. Just go away. I only get 1,000 views an episode. I don't need you. Go away. It's a small operation over here. It's an exclusive club. Metacritic wasn't all that different. It's just that it was proportionately lower. It was lower by 10 points for across the board. And I was trying to understand what the differences in methodology was, because people feel very opinionated about this. I couldn't really get to the bottom of it, actually. I think what it is Rotten Tomatoes, they just take all of the reviews that they receive, and then they do an average They average.
They rate a review as either up or down, basically, right? So,
well, but if they only did that, no, the up and down thing is if it's a below or above 60%. But they have to arrive at a percentage, which is a scale of 1 to 100, and they're doing that somehow.
Yeah, but isn't that just like a percentage of what is up and what is down? So if it's certified fresh, it's basically a thumbs up to thumbs down ratio, you know?
Oh, okay. So like, all right, I get it.
And so Metacritic is more like an average. Like,
so Rotten Tomatoes is literally saying 67% of reviewers gave it a thumbs up or something.
yes, but pretty
Okay.
much, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. You just saved me a nerd or two.
That's my understanding, at least.
Go after EJ.
Please don't hurt me. I have kids.
I have a family. I don't exactly know how it works, okay? But I read Metacritic, they were like, well, we don't tell you exactly how we arrive at it, but it's a percent scored based on weighting. So they'll weight some reviewers higher than others, so that like blogs don't get the same whatever. And I assume audience score is every audience member has to rate it from 1 to 10. So of course, what I did for the audience score to make it comparable is it made it a scale of, I just moved the decimal point to make it a scale of 100. So that wasn't very illuminating. And then, except for the fact that, yeah, it's like, it still is proportionately lower for phase 4. So that was like, well, okay, well, what about the budgets on these things, the budgets and the earnings? And I did it by phase. I did a bar chart by phase. And what I found was the finances over at Marvel Studios at Disney are very, very healthy.
Yeah.
The budgets tend to be somewhere between, they're normally like 150 mil to 200 mil, sometimes 220 mil. The only ones that were totally outrageous were Infinity War and Endgame, which we'll get to in a moment, because they represent an awful lot of the total earnings. I think those were like in the 300s. Like I think Infinity War is, this is according to Box Office Mojo, like 315, and Infinity War, Endgame was like 350 or something. And then while I was there, I was like, what about the runtimes on these things? What's the average, So I'll also get to that in a moment. But if you look at the bar chart, yeah, the earnings always far exceed the budget, but phase 3, like, it was explosively profitable.
Yeah.
Because of specifically Endgame, Infinity War, and there must be one or two others, like Ragnarok really hit, and I think there's a couple other ones. Black Panther. Yeah. It's insane. Like this was always an insanely profitable company. Phase 3 was just like, and then in 2020, they didn't release anything.
That's crazy. That's
like
crazy to think about.
So then we said, okay, well, if you take these shows, you take these movies, because I think what a lot of people are feeling is like, I can't, like I used to enjoy 2-3 Marvel movies a year. Now I got to watch like 7 shows and 4 movies, it's just too much. And there's of course the FOMO element, which they're banking on. I've got it. That's why I'm still like keeping up with She-Hulk. It's the FOMO thing.
Helps with content too.
Yeah, it's kind of handy. So I was like, all right, well, how many more hours after 2021 have you asked me to watch before? So it used to be that the average number of hours of Marvel content released per year was 3.8 hours per year. So like
2 movies.
Yeah. And it is now, was it 25 hours for 2020 across 2021 and 2022. 2021 was like 30 some, and then 2022 was a little bit less. So a 560% increase in the amount of Marvel that you're getting.
I think that's too much to ask of the audience without devaluing that property, basically.
And if you get rid of the shows, you're basically back to normal. You're basically back to phase 3 amounts.
But those movies aren't very satisfying.
No, they haven't been good either. Yeah, so they're like, it's like, a Disney Plus in general to me feels like shovelware at this point. Like there does feel like there's like a brand reputation problem now.
And phase 4 earnings is a little deceiving because ticket prices have kind of exploded a little bit. I think I was seeing something that, because it's like the average ticket is like $11 now, and back in 2019 it was like $9. So
Yeah.
kind of like inflates the numbers of Phase 4 a bit for the movies.
Yeah, you were going, hey, why not chart out like number of tickets sold?
Yeah, that's a harder thing to do because I don't think anybody really tracks that. So you have to do math, and that's not perfect because you have to do the average ticket price, which isn't perfect.
The earnings are lower for Phase 4, but not.
So Bob Iger, is he going to right the ship?
Well, that's the thing is like, was this guy, I mean, what can this guy take credit for and what can he not take credit for?
I don't think he can really even take credit for anything this year. It's like
Iger?
I think, Bob Chapek, I don't think there was anything he even kicked off that premiered this year. So I don't even know.
I mean, like, I'll tell you, No Way Home outperformed Multiverse of Madness, Thor: Love and Thunder, and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever by a lot.
Yeah. Well, I think for ticket prices, I think for Wakanda Forever's opening weekend, like 40% less people bought tickets because that's the thing is you have to do the math with the ticket prices. So like 40% less people saw Wakanda Forever than the first week of Black Panther.
Yeah.
So it's a bit hard because the ticket prices went up, but that's what I think the math comes out to.
I mean, if you just take production budget, which everybody says like double it for marketing or whatever, but let's just say, were there any times where the domestic earnings were lower than the production budget? There were 3 times in all of Marvel. The Incredible Hulk, and only by a smidge, only by a few bucks. Black Widow, and Eternals.
Oh yeah.
And the average runtime of a Marvel film is 2 hours and 12 minutes.
I think that's egregious. They should really lower that average going forward.
I agree.
That is the main problem I have with Wakanda Forever is it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. It has no right being that long.
It's way fucking too long. Yeah, I do just want to say the only movies they've made under 2 hours in their whole history have been The Incredible Hulk, which was 1 hour and 52 minutes. That's the shortest movie that they've made, 1 hour 52.
Wow, really?
Yeah, they've never gone lower than that. Thor, the Dark World, which was also 1 hour 52. Ant-Man, 1 hour 58. Doctor Strange, 1 hour 55. Ant-Man and the Wasp, 1 hour 58. And Thor: Love and Thunder, 1 hour 59. So only those ever were under 2 hours.
And none of those are like phenomenal. I like Doctor Strange a lot, but like I don't think of those as phenomenal Marvel movies. So
yeah,
maybe my hypothesis of length of time is not right. But
if you had a conspiracy theory about this Bob situation, what would it be?
Oh, well, sexual misconduct.
Really? You think so?
That's always in my head with, something change up abruptly happened in Hollywood. That's what I think.
So I know that he was preparing everybody for lots of layoffs. I mean, it seems like most companies are trying to separate the wheat from the chaff, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, didn't Facebook lay off some people recently?
Facebook, Google, Microsoft,
Twitter, and obviously.
Twitter, yeah, Twitter's in a league of its own. But they kind of like, I don't know, in like July or June or something, most of these CEOs, these titans were like, now is not a good time to work less hard. Now would be a good time to really show your stuff. I do think like I saw a chart that like Twitter kept growing. It like doubled its number of employees in the last 4 years, but it's only shrank profits.
Yeah.
So what's going on there? Like they just want to make like a summer club for Californians or something? I
guess so. Or it's like a CIA front. I don't know.
Like what the fuck is going on? Like
I don't know.
I think it's because I think the management is cut from the same cloth as the employees. They're kind of all like hippy dippy. We've got more money than sense. This is how the world should be. Paradise.
Could be.
Something like that.
So yeah, my other hypothesis was Bob Chapek is like kind of a scapegoat. He's like they know they have to do a bunch of layoffs. He'll be the sacrificial lamb. We'll bring in the old guard back to signal that we're gonna get through this. Something like that.
I wonder why Iger came back. He wrote his book and everything. He wrote my book.
Yeah, he was gonna be like a presidential candidate and everything.
Was he really? It seems right.
That's the rumor.
I'll run for president. Yeah, interesting. I think my best guess would be because the layoffs indicate bad financial health. It sounds kind of Warner Brothers ish. The whole like, let's change out CEOs, let's be crazy,
Zaslav, he's doing all sorts of stuff.
We lost James Gunn stupidly.
Yeah.
Very unnecessary.
No,
we were talking to somebody today.
DC's gain.
We were talking, that we were like, is Iger good? Is Iger bad? And I was like, wasn't Iger the guy who fired James Gunn? And our friend Dan was like, well, didn't he kind of have to? And I was like, I don't think so. I think even then, even in the midst of cancel culture, he had an opportunity to be a leader and be like, 10-year-old tweets. I'm gonna let like internet drama run this company. Is that what I'm gonna do?
Yeah.
Did the American does the consumer even know this is going on?
Subscribe to Red Cow Entertainment on Patreon for full episodes every other week.